The castle area in Resident Evil 4 was such a stark change to what we were used to while going through the village and countryside. As I mentioned in previous videos, it just felt a lot more intimate, since combat took place in much closer quarters. However, there were still massive areas in the castle that flipped this feeling completely. And in this video, we're going to be focusing on one room in particular, the crank room, and the strange things we can find out of bounds that hint at how this room was changed. So first and foremost, what I call the crank room, others may refer to as the water hall, and in other instances, like in strategy guides, it's called the Hall of Worship. Either way, it's that big beautiful room in the castle that you encounter right before you get separated from Ashley. Normally, Leon and Ashley enter this room and they must work together to clear all parts within it. This involves standing on two pressure plates in the lower section, which spawns the first crank within the room, and then turning that crank to gain access to the upper floor of the room. Once we're up there, we're supposed to boost Ashley to the top walkways so that she can turn the cranks that are on each side. This is a section where you typically utilize your rifle to snipe baddies who are looking to take her away. Upon completing one crank, a platform spawns in the water, and she heads to the other side to start turning the other. Once both of these cranks are turned, the walkway to the room's exit is restored, and you're free to leave. And, like I mentioned earlier, right after this room is where you get separated from Ashley. But let's turn our attention back to this room because there's a lot of neat things within it. For starters, something I found pretty interesting while navigating this space was that Ashley actually doesn't need the path to be restored in order to cross the water. If Leon is granted free mobility through a hack and walks across the water, Ashley will actually jump across the platforms as if they are still present. It's quite interesting. It seems Leon is really the only person who needs these platforms to cross. Everyone else simply floats upon the water as if they're standing directly on the reflection below. Which brings us to the next thing I want to quickly touch on. I absolutely love what I call mirror worlds within video games, and this room is one of those mirror worlds. The entire map is inverted and placed beneath a level to simulate a real reflection, because actually simulating a real reflection would be insanely taxing on the game itself. There's no way the GameCube would have been able to handle it, honestly, given the rippling effect of the water. So this is their workaround. By displacing Leon's normal positioning, we can actually explore this mirror world in its entirety. It's pretty bizarre navigating it, because all of it is basically forbidden territory and is out of bounds. The only thing that ever gets down here is the occasional enemy body that falls in the water, and even then, it would be unloaded before ever getting down this far. It's a beautiful off-limits world that only exists in a reflection, and honestly, I find it pretty darn cool. So naturally, while exploring this room, I of course wanted to see everything it had to offer. Exploring the reflection is cool and all, but it's all within the mindset that I know nothing will truly be down there. That's why I was pretty darn excited to try to get up top to where Ashley goes. Normally, Leon does not have access to this area at all, but with some modifications, we can get ourselves up there. It's also really easy since Leon retains his vertical position unless something acts on him, like a slope in the terrain. So with a wall hack, we can simply walk from the room's exit straight across to the upper platforms. But that's when I encountered something a bit unexpected, and it made me wonder about this room in its entirety. So while I was up there, I decided to try some basic things. Do the enemies come after me? Nope. Can I turn the crank as Leon? Nope. Where do the hallways lead that they take Ashley to? Absolutely nowhere. Also, the enemies will just spawn right in front of you when you're inside them. It's kind of strange. Now, I was already familiar with these types of hallways because lots of areas utilize them. If you've watched my video about the strange doors in Resident Evil 4, you'll know that sometimes these areas also have real doors within them. In that instance, we could use them to access Ashley's solo dungeon area, but in most cases, there isn't anything to be found. I had already explored the similar set of doors at the bottom of the level, and they are essentially the same thing. They are a hallway used to spawn enemies in the game so that the enemies cannot be seen when they instantly appear. They also serve as a place that enemies can take Ashley to when she is captured. They're essentially a blank hallway, but while navigating these hallways, that's when I realized there was something strange next to them. It turns out that the paintings that are hanging up alongside these crank areas are hiding additional hallways. You can tell which ones have the hallways because they are way darker than the other paintings. I found it super odd because I'm pretty sure these hallways are never used in the normal game or even in New Game Plus. At first I was thinking, well, maybe these are used when the difficulty was increased, but that's not the case at all. So this got me thinking, remember when we first entered this room? There's a giant painting staring us in the face that eventually becomes a staircase. The painting literally folds down and then becomes the area we use to climb up. It's actually more so the painting combined with the archway that is engraved into the wall. This whole thing just bends. Now, connecting the two concepts together, I strongly believe these used to be utilized as additional enemy spawns, or perhaps where tougher enemies emerged from. I can imagine more archers popping out of here to make this section more difficult, similar to the 2 archers that spawned this room on New Game Plus. Beyond what I already mentioned, on the back of the painting is actually the floor tile itself, which would make sense given that once collapsed, it would serve as a walkable bridge over to the cranks. The collision for these walkways is actually still in the game too, as Ashley can walk across the floating gap with ease. She can pass through the painting too, so at one point, these were utilized. It's interesting because even if you walk out of bounds and into the void, it also appears that the collision for the staircase extends far out of bounds. This can be used to walk from one hallway to the other as Leon gradually takes the staircase upwards. So all in all, it makes me wonder if the difficulty was toned down for this crank room before the final game came out. Perhaps there were too many enemies for the average player to handle. It makes you wonder. Regardless, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on all of this in the comments below. If I overlooked something or made a mistake, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching guys and gals, and we'll see all of you again really soon on HorrorScoped. Cheers.